Yes, how are we today?
Hi, teacher. Good.
Hi.
Yeah, we're good.
All right, so for today's class, it'll be very short. We'll focus on communication strategies as we did last week. However, this week we're focusing specifically on asking for clarifications, all right? All right, okay. So before we start, I'd like to show a very short video. Please tell me if you cannot hear the audio.
Do you want a cup of tea?
What, darling?
Do you want a cup of tea?
Sorry?
I'll just make you one. I'll just make you one.
What is it you want, honey?
I just said you want a cup of tea.
Huh?
I'm making a cuppa, so I'll just make you one.
Huh?
Tea, darling.
Huh?
Would you like a cup of liquid?
Huh?
Would you like me to put a submersible bag of tea leaves in a cup of boiled water?
Huh?
Would you like
Can I have a cuppa, please?
Yes.
Huh?
Okay, so that's a really funny video. It basically focuses on asking for clarification and how it can improve a conversation. So based on that video, I'd like to ask two questions. Does this situation seem familiar? And have you ever felt the need to tell somebody to speak up, slow down, or repeat what they have just said? Can I have Siti Aisha to tell me a situation where they have done this before? Have you ever told somebody to speak up, slow down, or repeat something that they've just said?
Um, yes, yes, because sometimes because sometimes people I'm a bit slow when people are talking. So sometimes when people talk, I have to tell them to repeat what they say.
Okay, that makes sense. Does this happen often?
Yes, most of the time.
All right, so the situation does seem familiar. This highlights that sometimes when in a conversation with with other people, sometimes you might need to ask them to speak up. Number one. Second, maybe ask them to slow down, and lastly, ask them to repeat themselves. All right. So these three actions, telling somebody to speak up, slow down, or repeat themselves, are considered clarification strategies. What are the functions of clarification strategies? We'll get into that, but before we start, I want to go into our learning objectives. What will we focus on for today's lesson specifically? The first thing we're going to focus on is describe a situation in real life context where you have used a clarification strategy. Earlier, Siti Aisha already explained her situation wherein sometimes people will consider her a bit slow in retaining information, right? So she might have to ask them to repeat what they've said or maybe ask them to slow down. So that's one situation where you could use the clarification strategies. Second, we have to identify four examples of communication strategies and their purposes in a given text. I will share the text earlier a bit later in the lesson. And lastly, let's create a bubble mind map using Google Slides to compare and contrast our communication strategies. So these are the three objectives we are trying to achieve for today. Moving on to the functions of clarification strategies that I mentioned earlier. The first one is speaking up. Second one is asking them to slow down. And lastly, repeating themselves. So there's three functions. The first one is to ensure understanding. When we use clarification strategies specifically in a conversation, it helps us avoid misunderstandings or confusion, right? So when we ask somebody to repeat what they've said, maybe it's because we didn't hear the first time, or maybe because we misunderstood what they have said and we would like further clarification. Second function is to build confidence in a classroom. When we use clarification strategies, sometimes we might feel more in control when we are in a conversation. Like we tell them to, oh, slow down a bit, slow down a bit. Oh, then we can understand more of the conversation. And lastly, clarification strategies keep conversations going. This, what they mean by this is that it help maintains the flow of dialogue, especially in longer exchanges. When you tell somebody to speak up, when you tell somebody to slow down, it basically you can go on a pace that is comfortable for you. So you can have a more deep and meaningful conversation. All right, so we understand the clarification strategies, right? Can now we will shift our focus to the sample dialogue that I mentioned earlier in the learning objectives. So I'm aware that we have an uneven number of students for our class. So is it possible for me to ask Siti Aisha, Shaza Shahira, and Nabila Huda to be Yuna? And then I'll have Siti be represented by Azra and Patin. Is that all right? Okay,
Yes.
so we'll take turns
Yes.
reading this together. If possible, I want everybody to have their mics on so that I know that everybody is participating in class. Is that okay?
Yes,
Yes,
teacher.
teacher.
All right. So who's Yuna? We can start with you guys.
I'm thinking of going to either Sabah or Bali this weekend. Where do you think I should go?
Can you slow down?
Can you slow down?
You're going somewhere this weekend?
You're going somewhere this weekend?
Yeah, but I just can't decide between Sabah or Bali.
Don't you think you're forgetting
Don't
something
you think you're
important
forgetting
happening
something important
Saturday?
happening this Saturday? Something
Something
that
that
starts with
starts with
B?
B.
Huh? Starts with what? Can you repeat that?
Starts with B.
Starts with B.
And it
And it
rhymes
rhymes
with fiance.
with fiance.
What? Beyonce? Can you speak up?
Yuna, my
My
fiance's birthday
fiance's
is
birthday
next
is
Saturday.
next Saturday
And you
and you
promised to
promised
help set up.
to help set up.
Oh, I did. Sorry, Bali can wait. Let's plan for his birthday.
Okay. So this conversation is you can clear up the misunderstandings from this conversation using clarification strategies. Can you spot any of them in the dialogue?
Yes.
All right. So, Azra, what is the first clarification strategy you see in the dialogue?
Can you slow down?
All right. Can you slow down? That is the first clarification strategy. What does it do to the conversation? What are you asking for the other person?
Asking the other person to speak slowly.
Yes. And how does this help the conversation?
Um, Help to understand what the person is talking about.
Yes, exactly. You can deter from misunderstandings and you can understand the flow of the conversation better. Thank you so much, Azra. Nabila Huda, can I have you state the second clarification strategy in the dialogue? Okay, can you repeat that? What does that mean in the conversation? What does that do? And why do they do that? Why do you ask somebody to repeat something? Exactly. So it helps again you can understand what the other person is trying to say better in a conversation. Yeah, I think there is one more. Can I have one volunteer to find the last clarification strategy in the dialogue? Okay, Fatin, what's the last clarification strategy?
Can you speak up?
Okay, can you speak up? Okay, what does this do to the conversation? How does it help the conversation?
It helps the person who say, "Can you speak up?" Ask the person who's speaking to speak loudly or clearer.
Yes, exactly. And by doing that, they again are able to understand what the other person is trying to say better and keeps the flow going smoother. Right. Thank you for everybody's attention for the sample dialogue. We'll move on to our final activity. I'll share a link for a Google Sheet in the classroom. Can I have everyone to join? Basically, in the Google Slides, we will see a bubble map. I feel like everybody is familiar with this. I've already divided the groups. The first group will be Aisha, Fatin, and Shaza. The second group will be Nabila and Azra. So from the bubble maps, I would like everyone to list down ways to ask someone to. The first group would have to be slowing down, and the second group would be how to ask somebody to speak up. So I'll give everyone maybe 2 minutes to fill in the blanks, and then we'll continue from there. Is that all right? All right, so I'll be monitoring from here. All right. Okay, so it's been 2 minutes. How's everybody's progress? Are we finished?
Yes.
Are we done? Okay, if looking from the slides in the Google slide that I shared, everybody seems to have finished their bubble map. So can I have one of the representative from the group to read their slides? Can I have group one go first? Maybe Fatin, can you read the slides?
Yes. And do
Okay.
I have to read all the bubbles or only one?
All the bubbles, please.
All right. Um, how to ask someone to slow down? The first point is, whoa, slow down. What were you saying? The second one is, pardon, you were going a bit too fast. What was that you said just now? And the last one is, can you please repeat that but slowly?
All right. So these are different ways to say slow down. It basically means the same thing, but you want to. It's just different ways to approach it. All right. So thank you for all the responses. All of them are very good. Maybe you can use it in your future conversations. Let's move on to the second group. Basically, asking somebody to speak up. Can we have maybe Azra to read it out?
Yes, teacher. Um, for this bubble map is how to ask someone to speak up. The first one is pardon me. I did not catch that. Can you repeat it loudly? And the second one is can you say that again but loud? I meant to say louder. Okay. And the third one is what did you say? Speak up, please.
All right. Okay. So these are different ways to tell somebody to speak up. Maybe if you're not hearing them well, maybe if they're saying something very slowly or not that loud, you can ask them to speak up using these kind of phrases. All of this are correct, and maybe you can use it in future sentences or future conversations. All right. So looking at all these sentences, I feel like we've gone through all of the learning objectives. Let's go through it once more. The first one is to describe a situation in real life context where you have used clarification strategies. Second, identify three or more examples of communication strategies in and their purposes in a text, which is basically the dialogue that was in before. And lastly, create a bubble mind map using Google Slides to compare and contrast communication strategies. So that basically we have basically gone through all of our learning objectives. We've learned the functions of clarification strategies and when we can possibly say it in a dialogue. So that should be all for today's class. Is there any questions?
No.
All right,
No,
so
teacher.
I'll meet you guys